Hi, welcome to Detours Understanding Acquired Brain Injury. With us, we have a new host, Emily, who is going to share with us one of her hobbies, which is interesting. But we'll get into that in a moment. But Emily, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about about yourself and
So my name is Emily, as you've already been told. I am 34 years old and was in a car accident in August. And I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage, a stroke, broke my neck, broke my nose, had a feeding tube in, so I got my fairy belly button. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of what happened with my brain injury. I was in the hospital for a little over a month, and now I'm doing quite a bit better, but still obviously struggle with getting used to my new normal.
so well, first of all, you're in a different kind of getup. Could you explain some of of why you're dressed like that and how it connects to some interesting hobby? Um,
Yeah. So I am a Renaissance Festival junkie. It's like my favorite place in the world is to be at a Renaissance festival. I obviously haven't went to one since the car accident, so it was really exciting to be able to dress up like this. It's been a long time, and I noticed it was really good for me to kind of organize how I was going to make this work. And so I picked everything out yesterday, minus the skirt. There was a little trip up there, but I got to put on my jingly and my fun little fairy crown. I've noticed it's really, I'm in a really good mood right now. So it's been a long time since I've been able to do something like this, and it's something I really, really enjoy. So it's nice to take a break from thinking about everything that has happened and just kind of be this for a little bit.
and that relates to like what we were talking about like reconnecting with old hobbies and things you like, because you shared a lot about like doing Renaissance, about when you were involved in the Renaissance fairs. And I talked to somebody else who is brain injured, who is a Renaissance fair a knight, somebody who reenacted as a knight and took a pretty hard hit to the head when jousting. And talking to you reminded me of him. And actually, I also know a young lady who was a squire or something like that who took a hit to the head jousting. And I know there are a couple that I've spoken to who enjoyed reenacting and the medieval reenacting and Ren fairs and who've been injured. I mean, it is technically a sporting injury for
Yeah.
them. And, and you being a reenactor, and I was like, huh, uh, I want to hear, a little more. I'd like you to share some, just, how your hobbies have, A, been affected, and B, it's like what you're obviously you're planning on getting back into doing it again, and what your plans are to help you. Oh, gotta definitely let him in there. um,
And
some so who's the handsome guy?
it's Ember. Ember.
Oh, Ember.
Yeah. There
So,
you go. You can sit
so
there.
who's the good girl?
Yeah. Yes. My little husky. She's
Oh,
crazy.
she's beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, so what are your plans for modifying for well, first of all, what are present symptoms, effects, from your brain injury from your car accident? What are things that are problematic for you?
Definitely difficult for me to do my makeup now. I've
Mhm.
noticed it's hard for me to even reach up this far yet. I think that may be from really not really sure where that comes from. And then I shake too some, so it's definitely difficult to do my makeup, which is frustrating, but not the end all be all. That was one of the things that I was worried about coming into this, actually, was like, oh, I can't do my makeup. Like,
Mhm.
but it's being okay. I'm like, well, this works. Like,
Right.
they didn't have a whole bunch of makeup back then, so it's not necessary. So that, yeah, it was fun to do this in kind of a different way and realize that just because I have to change it a little bit doesn't mean I can't do it.
Right.
Um, and definitely preparation.
Right.
Preparation, which,
How about like cognitive effects from the brain injury? Any like problems with those?
yeah, a little, I would say it is harder for me to think about getting into the role of the person I'm dressing up as,
Right.
uh, where it used to be really easy for me. Oh, Ember, where it used to be really easy for me. Now it's a little more difficult to switch my brain over to be
Mm.
that. But even that, I'm like,
Practice. Mm.
yeah, I just have to,
You,
think a little harder about it.
as long as you could do it, I guess that's what matters. Do you find that like it's memory related, or is it more attention and focus, or
Attention and focus.
um, yeah, because it's basically the acting kind of skills, things like that. Do you find you have any issues with like planning, abstraction? Because obviously, if you could plan ahead to set things up at night, you've got
Yes,
that intact.
exactly. Exactly. I was like, oh, I probably should do this tonight.
Right. And so that shows you've got that. So, that's important. How about like emotional or like, is that pretty good? Um,
The ocean stuff is actually really good. Yeah. Ember, go play in the yard.
suggesting that those areas are probably less affected. Like a lot of us have like frontal, like more serious frontal, but maybe yours is in different areas. Again, no two brain injuries are alike, as we always stress. And
Yeah.
so it's very likely that the impact you have is probably in different areas. Maybe, and as you point out with motor skills and things like that, and like with like some of the attention focus, you definitely have some frontal, but you may have, and you have some speech, impact too.
Yeah.
But it's different. And a lot of us, this I want to stress quickly, a lot of us have more moderate symptoms. We're not as severe in at detours here. Um, Obviously, I mean, if we were severe, we couldn't do what
Can
we
do.
do. But I do want to stress that it does have an impact. It's not like it has no impact at all. But as you could see with Emily, she is able to do these things, and she will be able to do her to return to the Renaissance Fair. It just will take more effort. And I think, like, what other hobbies do you have that require, cognitive engagement?
Cooking and baking for sure. That was a huge one for me before my accident, and now I really struggle with it. I still try to do it, but some days I'm just like, I don't have the brain power or the will to do this. But then it'll, be the next day and I'll be okay.
And that is something important too. Is that drive? We've talked about adynamia, which is the where you've got energy, but you just can't make yourself do it. And that seems to be something that affects all of us. Is like, I know I want to do this, but I just can't make myself go. Shift into drive. Adynamia, and the emotional side of that is apathy. Like I can't make myself care at the moment. Some people have it all the time and it's very serious. Others have it variable. Again, it depends on severity, and each brain injury looks different. That is a frontal lobe symptom. Um,
Yes. I
now,
find them. especially daunting when it comes like measuring out things.
Mm.
Difficult. I've noticed like where I used to know some math, I'm like even basic arithmetic now. It's like difficult.
That's in the back of the head. So again, suggesting that your injuries are mainly in different areas from a lot of us. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I went through the windshield of my car. So
mm,
it's, and then I,
the energy probably more back here in the back, but that
yeah,
could be just as disabling, just in a different way. It doesn't affect your emotions or your behaviors as much, but it sure does affect. Now, you are probably behaviorally and emotionally a lot more like you were before, but you may have some isolated areas, but you've got more like academic type of problems, with math and like counting things out and like, like reading or writing or math or those kind of things more affected. And that
absolutely.
and that's
Cool.
if you're hurting towards the back of the head.
Yeah. Being in school now, it's definitely, I have to take a different approach to like I have to write things down over and over until I've kind of got it locked in. And even then it's like, am I gonna remember it or not?
That's another common one is our short-term memories aren't so great anymore.
Yeah. Yep, that's a huge one.
That's frontal, but that's definitely those of us who have dorsolateral. We're almost like ADD, ADHD kids. I've talked about that one a whole lot.
Yes.
But the cooking and the baking, that is a good way to grow your, to grow your cognitive skills too. And that is a very cognitively demanding activity. In fact, a good neuropsych test it for a person who's not expecting their, you as a neuropsych will say to somebody, hey, go make me a cup of coffee. Now, you don't ask them on the machine they're used to. You ask them on one that they haven't used before, and see how they do, how long it takes them to do that.
Yeah.
That's a good neuropsych test.
I could definitely see that being difficult.
It
Oh
is.
wait.
It is. And that's why the fact, but you practicing like you are, or anyone out there practicing, that is a
Yeah.
great, quick assessment of neurofunction. Um, I don't know if anyone has normed the average person doing with a typical, cheap, generic coffee maker, but that is a good, solid test. So, what we're going to be doing with you next, as far as like, because I just wanted to like quickly go over like some of the things is we're going to be talking about different hobbies and ways to deal with, like accommodations and talk about things you do to accommodate for as things go forward. Um, and different kind of like things you might do for baking or whatever, ways you find accommodations for that, how you deal with, your hobbies and, by the way, with your tattoos there, I've noticed you have the different tattoos. What are they, on your arm there, your upper arm? What are the different tattoos? What do they mean?
Okay, I'm gonna stand up because you're being crazy. So I have, yeah, here's my shark with some Tool lyrics in it. Embrace the random. I
Oh,
got, these are all pretty old. I haven't gotten a new one in a while. So, and then I have my sister's name here, Motley, and I've got some stars with a happy cat face in it, and my spiral and lightning bolt, and an ancient Incan moon goddess named Mama Kia, with my daughter's name in it.
ah,
And I've got
okay.
like,
I was wondering if you had family ones, and you have then the feeding tube, your fairy belt.
yeah, yes, I like that. I'm like, oh, that's a good new name for it. I like it.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that a lot of survivors of brain injury require, um, while you're unconscious, you do require to be fed. Now, there are two major ways of doing this. You can either place a peg tube or J tube into either the stomach or into the small bowel, and to provide nutritional supplements, or you can do what's called total parenteral nutrition, which is where you literally place an intravenous line and you will put a liquid that contains, this has to be done very sterilely and very cautiously, but you can provide the nutrition a person needs into their bloodstream and feed them that way, but it must be done very carefully. Even doing it the way she was fed, through with a peg tube, requires cleanliness. Now, eventually that will heal shut, but you must, and a lot of kids are fed this way too, who have feeding problems, things like that. And here's a picture of what it looks like as a diagram. And here, and so if you pull it out, many patients do accidentally while they're unconscious. You will, as you could take care of these at home using feeding pumps, using enteral feeding pumps, and you flush it first. There's a process to go through. But it's important to be aware and to maintain cleanliness when you're doing this. So you don't want to introduce infection. Although that chance is much lower than, say, total parenteral nutrition, where you're actually entering the bloodstream and cause septicemia. But how long, if you don't mind me asking, before we get ready to go, how long were you fed by peg tube?
It was about, let's see, or August, so September, October, November, December, about 5 months.
5 months. That's not unusual. 5, 6 months, a couple months. Many patients who have damage to their vocal cords or have trouble with the epiglottis down here, they're fed through peg tubes. Also, there are some patients who suffer brain injury to the one of the cranial nerves that controls the ability to swallow. And if you saw here, here is a diagram of those systems. And if you suffer damage to those areas, you may permanently require a peg tube. You can live a perfectly normal life. You don't need to be running this all the time. However, your feeding pattern will change. Just as a side note, thank you for sharing that with us also, because this is an important thing. A lot of families, moms, dads, kids, and oh my God, you will be taught how to handle this. And we may talk with you at some point about, talk to you about your experience with this. But since this is an introductory kind of video, I just, quickly wanted to get to this. But we'll be seeing our favorite fairy, Emily, occasionally talking about, these kind of topics because they're important. These are just some of the things that go along with traumatic brain injury. It's not just cognitive and emotional and behavioral and visual and those kind of symptoms. It's also effects to the body at large. And so talking about treating those kind of things is very important too, and getting to know what you'll be dealing with when you have somebody who comes home from the hospital. And some of these effects can be permanent, whether a person's in a wheelchair, needs a feeding tube, needs a ventilator. And I understand you were also trached too. Is that correct?
My trach scar is right there.
And that's something else. Now, I was briefly intubated for the week I was out, but I didn't need a trach, but you did. So, and that you'll see that with a lot of the more serious brain injuries. But even a person with a mild traumatic brain injury may need to be trached to support them because it's affecting the deep areas of the brain. Here, a diagram of the process of tracheal placing a trach. It is, again, something that some people only need for a short time, others need just for a little while. All right, so I want to thank you so much. Excellent introduction, and it was great to meet you, and welcome to the Detours and Friends of Brain Injury family. And we'll be seeing you around, and congratulations on a new spot with us. She's going to be our chief people officer, our HR officer. So we're welcoming her on board that way too. But you also will be seeing her frequently too. So
yay,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you so much for everything. And so we'll be seeing you again soon. Bye.
Sounds good.